Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 8 of the Road to the ProcureTech Cup for this 2024-2025 season. Really excited to have you on the show today. I'm Joël Collin Demers, your digital procurement mentor. I'm also the consulting principal at Pure Procurement and the head editor at the Pure Procurement newsletter. We've got an action-packed show for you today because, first of all, we've got Gabe coming on the show. Just give me a second here. I'll bring Gabe on here. Hey,
Hey,
Gabe, how's it
bro.
going?
It's great. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Gabe, you're going to be co-hosting us with me this year on the ProcureTech Cup. Gabe, I wanted to bring him on the show just because he's had such a instrumental part in just the ProcureTech software space in general, right? You worked at Coupa a long time on the software vendor side, bringing the company from 1 million to 1 billion in revenue. Not by yourself, of course, but instrumental in the team. And you have that deep experience on the software vendor side, and now you're on the consulting side of things, right? So I figured, you would be able to bring a different perspective to the show, different types of questions, and just bring a richness to the conversation. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to be here, and the opportunity in procurement tech is very exciting. And I actually came to join the advisory and consulting side because after being on the tech side so long, I saw such a bigger opportunity to look at more than just implementing tech, but the design, build, operate model of getting the operating model up front correct, then deploying the tech to enable those outcomes, then understanding how to continue to get value out of it. So excited to be on this side and excited to hear from Opstream today.
Very cool. And so we'll dive right into it, right? Being that this is a half-hour show, things go quickly. So the journey continues. You mentioned it. Opstream's on the show today. You see them that little yellow box on your screen. You see the folks that have come on the show so far. You can always watch the replays, and everybody that's coming in the upcoming weeks. We've got 25 total demos before getting to the actual ProcureTech Cup tournament in March. That runs on LinkedIn, and it's a lot of fun for those of you that were there last year. You'll know what I'm talking about. So we'll bring Leahy to the stage here. She'll join us. She's the CEO at Opstream, an intake and process orchestration company. But I know, Leahy, you're going to tell us it's so much more than that. So thanks so much for being here and for joining us on the show today.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. And hey, Gabe, nice seeing you as well.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Perfect.
So we're going to dive right into a company overview for about 7 minutes, right? Talk about what Opstream is, what it does, its unique value proposition, ideal customer profile, and then we'll get to the meat of what we're here to do, which is the solution demo. Gabe will have a little segment by RiseNow here. Let's get real, right? So we're really trying to get to what are the things that trip people up when implementing technology? Because as he said, the tech can be great, but if you don't use it correctly, then you're not going to get the business benefits at the end, right? And finally, we'll map it to the ProcureTech market map as we do every week as well. So on that note, Leahy, I'll give you the stage.
Perfect. Thanks so much. So before I'll jump into Opstream and what we do, and yes, Joel, as you said, we do way more than just intake and orchestration. Let me introduce myself. I'm Lee. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Opstream. We started Opstream about 3 years ago with the mission to change how companies buy. But over the time, we understood that it's way more than that. Because realistically, I know that our audience today actually know it, but in the rest of the market, we always talk about how hard it is to sell. We are so focused on that, and we sometimes forget about how hard it is to buy. And because of that, what happened in the industry is that we all built CRMs, and we know on the sales side everything that is going on from the moment, even before someone is a prospect. Everything that happens. But what happens on the buy side? We actually split over the years and speak about finance or negotiation or just intake. But actually, Opstream is the CRM for the buy side. What we do, we cover everything from the moment someone wants to ask to buy anything in any category, in any type of purchase throughout the vendor life cycle till the moment we need to sunset a vendor. Very high level. We sit in the middle. We integrate to all of your systems of record. It can be your finance, your legal, not to forget your security systems and IT systems. Everything that you have in place to create a seamless workflow. We then take your policies, we digest them and break them down into 3 types of questionnaires. What we call intake is the first one, the one for the requestor. Then another intake, the questionnaire for the vendor. But let's not forget a checklist for the approvers, because they don't really know what they need to check as well. We then collect all the compliance information from the vendors. Now, in the industry, we speak a lot about collecting it once, but I can have a 5 years agreement with a vendor, and then within those 5 years, every year their SOC 2 expires, their insurance expires, their HIPAA expires every year. So I need to reach out to those vendors multiple times a year to recollect compliance. We do that automatically for you. And most importantly, probably, is the fact that we cater to all departments. One of our KPI with our customers is the fact that 90% and above of the departments in the company are using the system. We are not focused only on finance and procurement or on the approvers. We actually focus on making sure that even the marketing guy out there can really submit a purchase request easily in a way that is as easy as writing a Slack message or sending an email. What's the magic? Gabe, you said the other day that, yeah, all the orchestration tools out there claim to integrate very quickly. But I will say that unlike others that started somewhere else in the market, can be intake, can be negotiation, can be payment, and then added integrations and orchestration, we worked differently. We actually started from orchestration. That's the infrastructure we built. That's the magic, the way we do orchestration. And we don't only integrate. What we do is actually build a unified data model across your vendors. What does it mean? It means that in Opstream, you can come and ask, hey, who are all my vendors that are high risk in OneTrust and their NDA expired in the CLM, and that we spent more than $1 million with in the ERP? Give me a list of all your vendors that are according to this filter. Now, what do I do with them? I can send all of them an email, a questionnaire, basically asking them, were you impacted by CrowdStrike last night? Or do you have an account in SVB? Or whatever we'll discover next week that happens in the industry that requires attention.
Let me ask you a question about that, because I think for years we've been talking about the supplier golden record and the supplier master and the master data. What have you been able to do uniquely to unify the supplier record? Because I think that's been a pain point and problem probably for the last 20 plus years in this space.
I agree. And I think that the magic is actually the fact that we are not the record, we orchestrate the record. What does it mean? The example that I gave, the risk score stays in the security platform, let's say OneTrust. The NDA expiration stays in the CLM, and the payment themselves and how much we paid stays in the ERP. We created the data model that knows to read from all the third parties and filter on all of them at the same time.
So when you talk about unified data model, you're not really, it sounds like we're not really referring to the actual, master data, metadata, but it's all the 360 relational information that you need to understand the supplier. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It depends on which systems you connect to Opstream. So we are able, and you will see it in the demo in a moment, we are able to integrate for way more than just submit a purchase request. we are actually able, and that's something that I'll show you in the demo, we are able to connect, for example, to your ERP and get to the granularity of the serialized items within your inventory. And then you can come to Opstream and you can ask vendors that are from a specific country, or let's do, again, the security. So vendors that don't have SOC 2, and in the inventory management, we have less than X number of licenses. So it all depends what information you store today. And I think that the beauty of doing it like that, the beauty of doing it like that is the fact that we do not need to change how your company works. You continue to work with the other systems. We just sit on top of them and aggregate all the data.
And I see it, Lihi, as like creating a big basket, right? So that every system's definition of what a vendor master record is fits into that basket, right? If I'm trying to use imagery, so that you have the widest definition possible and most flexible definition possible of what a vendor master is.
Yes, perfect.
And so who's it for, right? Who's your ideal customer profile?
So I'll get into that in a moment. I just want to share what's the impact for the ideal customer. So the impact is that we save time because we are also an intake solution. We save money because you know where to really focus, and we reduce the risk dramatically because of the examples I gave along security. And you don't need to listen to me. Listen to Jeremy Parking, Director of Procurement in LastPass. He was able to reduce the request handling time to increase the spend under management, but not less important, to do that within 2.5 weeks from agreement to company-wide go live, which is almost unheard of in the industry, to go live so quickly.
So an example like that, how many integrations does someone like LastPass have in their deployment? How many systems are sitting behind Opstream?
So I think that today LastPass has, I think, 3 or 4. I don't remember specifically for LastPass, but we have customers that have. Oh, I think that they have. Sorry, actually, I think that LastPass have even more than that. But with other companies, I will say, our very, very basic solution has 3 integrations that mainly handle communication and mainly handle the org chart. So org charts, a single sign-on, and Slack, Teams, email. That's the basic one. Okay. But then our average customer will have usually between 3 to 5 integrations that involve. The most common ones are the examples I gave: ERP, CLM, and security. Those, and e-signature, that comes very quickly as well, like DocuSign, Adobe Sign, EasySign, all of those, because that's part of the approval flow as well. You don't want to involve legal before DocuSign sees that the NDA is signed.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. You asked about the ideal customer profile, and I will speak about that and the analysts. So all the analysts in the market that produced report on the market mentioned Opstream as one of the leaders in the space. Our customers today are small enterprises, and we start our journey with the biggest enterprises out there now. So about the customers today, the small enterprises are usually companies between 500 employees to 2,000 employees. And when I say the bigger ones, I'm speaking about tens of thousands of employees that we start working with. Okay, last thing on the slides before we go to the real show here, the IDC report. We already produced about a month ago. I think that what's super interesting about this report, except from the fact that, yes, it's the first one that someone created the actual ranking of the space, and yes, of course, that I'm proud of the fact that he puts us there. I think that it's very interesting to look at the fact that ServiceNow which is not traditionally a procurement or vendor management solution. This is usually an IT security solution, is part of this bucket. And I think that Patrick from IDC really nailed it, because the first time I really saw a report in the market that speaks about procurement and finance and security in the same bucket and look at it as one piece. So I find this as, in general, I think that this report, it's a long report, but I think it's a very interesting one. So whoever didn't read it, I really recommend it. And that's it for the slides. Any questions before we move to the demo?
As we move to the demo here, we have a question in the chat. Loving this from Ritika. Thanks for the insights. Out of curiosity, how does Opstream comply with industry standards like GDPR and HIPAA?
Perfect question. So we are GDPR compliant. We are in the process of being HIPAA compliant as well. We are SOC compliant, and we actually work with financial institutes, investment banks. So everything that has to do with the regulations for financial institutes are in place. We are now on our way for healthcare as well, and that's why we'll be HIPAA compliant very soon.
Very cool. And I don't want to rush you, Lihi. I just am conscious of the time here, so I'd love to get to the demo so that we give people as much of a vision as possible into the solution.
Perfect. So of course we won't have time for a full demo, so I'll just focus on some very special things for Opstream. I'll be a requester. I'll start with a software request where I can show you slightly our sourcing capabilities. I'm a requester. I can come here and I say, oh, you know what? I want to buy ClickUp. But what happens now is that Opstream AI engine kicks in, and we realize that you already have other alternatives in place that are already purchased or requested, or that are part of your preferred vendors. So we can recommend that and say, instead of buying ClickUp, maybe you want license to Smartsheet. Of course, you can also continue with ClickUp. And we are now in the intake form can have another question that is like, okay, can we sunset the alternative if we purchase this one? If you say yes, we will ask you how long after we purchase we can sunset, and I'll show you in a minute how you can automatically then create a process that start the sunset, so you will not forget that.
And I imagine like all these forms are customizable, right? Based on the categories, based on,
Yeah, I skipped the obvious. Everything is customizable. Everything is self-service. Everything is no code. I actually have it here in the editor for us. So you can come here, and if I change anything and if I want to push it to live, that's all I need to do. I can add questions. I can remove them. I can change all the settings in the editor.
Beautiful.
So I'll, of course, once I start answering, the form changes automatically. I can also do cool things like educating my end user slightly, because we are not going to approve a below net 30 payment terms, for example. So please renegotiate and do that. We won't have time for all the questions here, so I'll submit this request and move quickly to show you how the request looks like after I submit it. So I'm still the requester. I can edit my replies, but more importantly, everywhere in the platform, here, everywhere in the platform, I can come and I can tag anyone from the organization. Let's tag Edgar and ask Edgar what he thinks about it. Edgar now receives an email, Slack, Teams, depends on your company. He can reply on Slack or Teams, and you will see the reply here. So your marketing guy doesn't really need to remember where is upstream or what is upstream. I'll approve on behalf of the first approver here and move to the second step. Important to say, we have steps here, and within each step, we can have multiple people approving each one of those. But this is part of the intake. I will not go into all of that right now. We won't have time. I do want to show you the hardware one, just as an example. Sorry, I meant to write demo. So this form at the moment, this is an example for our integrations, but it's more than that. It's an example for how we can also do direct and connect to your serialized itemization. So all the form here is connected in this example to my NetSuite. Just to orient you, I will show that I have two subsidiaries in my NetSuite. Once I come here and I pick a vendor, look what happened. I have only one subsidiary now because I want the end user to be able to not make mistakes. He doesn't need to know which subsidiary is relevant for this vendor. This, of course, can be applied to any type of question, including the itemization. So the items I see here, I read them now in real time from my NetSuite. Those are only the items that belong to this vendor, to this subsidiary, to this budget, to whatever I picked before. And now I can pick this item and I can have a table for the itemization that we'll have in a moment. Last thing
that's based on the data model of the backend system, right? So in NetSuite versus SAP versus Coupa versus whatever else, like the data structure is similar, but it's not the same, right? So for example, in NetSuite, I don't know exactly how it works. Not a NetSuite guy, more of an SAP guy. But if an item needs to have a pricing record associated to a vendor to be able to be purchased, that's the type of logic that you'd have to enforce with this, right?
Yes, you can actually even see if I go back to our admin. And again, my demo environment is just connected to NetSuite, but you can have the same for any other, for SAP, for MS Dynamics, for Workday, for OneTrust, for Penorize, for a lot of other systems. What you can see here that my NetSuite, in order to produce purchase order, has only 5 mandatory fields. We identify that automatically. You can add all the other fields in your NetSuite that are relevant to the purchase order. And baseball team, I can delete because it's optional in my NetSuite, but those I cannot delete because those are mandatory for purchase order in my NetSuite. You connect here your SAP, we automatically identify what are the fields in your SAP for purchase order, and those will be mandatory included here. Does that make sense?
And again, yeah, it goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, right? I see it as a big basket, right? You can make the basket as big as you want and as flexible as you want, and add all the fields that you want so that it maps to the relationships in your backend systems. And you can have different mappings per system if you're trying to, orchestrate different instances, to your point.
Yes, exactly. And I know we have like 2 more minutes, so I will just submit this and I will approve on behalf of Alfonso, and I will, while we wait for NetSuite to issue a purchase order, I will also show you that Opstream comes with full analytic model that helps you understand where you are in terms of spend, in terms of departments and decision time, SLA for the specific individual. It also comes with a complete vendor list that you decide on the attributes. And here again, each attributes that you decide per each vendor can read from any of the other systems. Risk or spend or GDPR, everything is there. And I think our NetSuite is pretty slow, not like Opstream. This is the only thing that is slow in the system because it depends on NetSuite. So what can I do? So we don't have this ready to show you in the time that we have now. I will also say that we have a full document repository. So you can store all your documents, you can filter for them to understand only the documents that are relevant to, let's say, ClickUp. So those are all the ones that we have there. I know we have only 4 minutes left, and I know that Gabe wanted to have some more questions. So
yeah, and you know, I'll throw the ball. Yeah, I'll throw the ball over to him because we all know that demos, you know, when they're prepared, they're great for sure. But it's time to get real, so I'll throw it over to Gabe for that.
Appreciate it. So we only, probably only time for one question today because we had such an active session. And you actually, without talking to me, led right into where I was going. Really slick software, great UI. The problem is it's all dependent on data, right? Whether it's the catalog information, services information, licenses information, and data is one of the biggest problems in procurement today. I used to be the slick demo guy. I was pretty good at it. But, looking at this and watching how great the demo is, how has this become practical when an organization doesn't have a handle on their data?
That's a perfect question. I'll give you just one example of how we manage the data, because I agree with you that whatever you have is just a portion of the data. So I'll give you one example. We have checklists for the approvers. I didn't have time to show you that, but it means that, for example, you can say, hey, legal approver, before you approve, you actually are blocked. You cannot click approve before you tell me, does this vendor has auto renew, yes or no? Does it have insurance? What's the expiration day of the insurance, and any other data point that you want? You ask the approver very small number of questions at the right moment in time, and then your data become more and more accurate. I agree. I'll give you an example. We just integrated with an ERP system of a new customer. And the day after we integrated, they were like, wait a second, we don't see all of our vendors here. What happened? It took us 24 hours to realize that they had all their vendors 3 times. Each one of them appeared in the ERP. And we took only the unique, because you just need 1 record per vendor. So it helps you once you use orchestration. A, it helps you identify mismatch of data in other systems. And B, because we really thought about data accuracy, that's why we have the checklist for the approver.
Thank you. And
to me,
I'm going to pass it probably back to you for this section.
Yeah, well, I was just going to ask or add, Gabe, like, to me, it's trying to build your business process around the fact that you have bad data, right? Accepting that as a fact. And then to your point, Lee, maybe you have, different vendor types, or the data's a bit screwed up in the back, but making sense of it as part of the implementation, and then building the process around it so that, if you have to ask or check questions or ask for additional data upfront before you enable that business process, you're doing that as part of one of these solutions.
Yeah.
All right. And so last segment here is really the ProcureTech Cup market map. So making sure that people understand where Opstream fits in. I build it as, intake management, process orchestration, but as we see on screen here, you do a bit more than that. So I don't know if, Lee, if you want to just guide us through, what the vision is, where you're going, what your take is on partnerships, roadmap, how you see the platform evolving over time.
Yeah, so we have about 30 seconds. So I'll just go back to the beginning and say we are the CRM for the buy side. It means that we handle compliance, we handle renewal, we handle automatic workflows. We spoke about it, Joel, that I actually think that this should be a circle and not step by step. And I will say we are in the middle. We do not do the payment because I don't think this is the most important thing. We do not do the specific redlining in the CLM because that's not the most important thing. We combine everything. We allow you full visibility in order to have the right workflows throughout the life cycle of all your third parties. And we are out of time. I can speak about Opstream for hours. So
no, and you know, a couple minutes is fine here. Like, I think this speaks nicely to a question Arjan asked in the chat, which is, you know, and it speaks to your comment about being in the middle, but also potentially being on top right? Where is it mainly for companies that have best of breed systems, or does Opstream sit on top, or is it also used by companies that don't have a procurement suite? So I thought that was a great question to end us off here.
Yeah, so actually it's both, because we have customers on the lower side of the ICP that build their stack with us. We start to be there, and then we are the document repository before they have a CLM, because they don't need redlining, and we do all the rest of the CLM functionality. Or some of them even start without connecting us to an ERP because they don't need the PO to be sent and the full-blown says. We can be a standalone and start small, and we can be a very big, incorporate your best of breed of everything else.
And I'll ask you, and that's my vision for intake in general as well, right? And I'll ask you one last question, because one thing that excites me about your solution is the direct piece, and it's my show, so I can do what I want. But if the requisitions, like we talked about direct materials, what about direct purchasing, right? So requisitions coming out of MRP, you know, that giant calculator that's looking at our stock and spitting out requirements when we're below our minimums. Can Opstream take those and apply business rules and kick off business processes on those requisitions instead of having to start from a form?
Yes, so we can integrate with whatever catalog you have. It can be like you need to have the catalog for your direct, whatever you allow people to buy direct. So you need to have the catalog for that, but then we can integrate with the catalog, and then we can apply rules on any attribute, on any item within the catalog. Everything is basically self-service. You will have a drop-down of all the attributes. If we had time, I would show you that, but Joel, it's about time that you'll see a full demo of the system. We see so many times and you never saw it. So let's schedule a full demo. Absolutely. That I'll take you through all of it, and I'll show you how it works.
And that's a good segue to end the show here, which is, if people want to learn more about Opstream, how can they get in touch with you, Lihi? What's the best way to get in touch?
So Lihi@opstream.ai. I'm always available to show Opstream and to know other people from the industry. Always a pleasure.
Very Perfect. Cool. And I think you guys are on LinkedIn, active on LinkedIn as well. So that's probably a good channel there. Gabe as well, I know, is active on LinkedIn, so go give him some praise for this first co-hosting duty, which I think he did magnificently. And I'll remind you as we end the show here that if you want to keep following these demos from week to week, the best place to go is newsletter.pureprocurement.ca. Subscribe for the newsletter, and you get the link to subscribe to the link, either LinkedIn live show that's every Friday at noon, or you can watch them on YouTube as well. And we have the back catalog on YouTube, on the channel, the Pure Procurement newsletter. So you can find us there. And thanks a lot for tuning in again this week, and we'll see you again next time.
Perfect. Thanks.